Thank you for tuning in. This production is brought to you by The Dead Roots.
Hello, universe. Welcome back to Mortality Diversity, brought to you by The Dead Roots. I'm super excited to announce we actually have a very special guest here. This is Bones. I'm just kidding. So no, this is .com. He's usually on the other side of the camera. He is our director and does all of the audio stuff for us. Well, we now have a partner with that as well, but yes, he has been here since day one, and I'm super excited to have you on this side of the camera. This will be
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, it will be fun. I'm excited.
So how old are you?
I am 23.
Years young? Old?
Young.
How do you feel about
I hope so. I hope it's, I mean, I feel old. That's for sure. But, I mean, I don't know.
it just kind of happens that way. So what is
Exactly.
the highest level of education you have achieved or attempted?
I spent 1 year in college, and then I dropped out because that was too dang expensive for me.
Totally understandable. All right, what, ooh, sorry, I might sneeze here. Got a cat fur in my nose. Woo.
Do it if you need to.
It's like not coming. I think it's just tickly. We're all good.
Cool.
All right. By the way, for our listeners, who viewers obviously can see, Bones, who we introduced at the beginning, is the cat sitting between us right now.
Yes. We've talked about him before in a couple episodes. He's on our website, actually, on the Dead Roots stickers. He's kind of our mascot for some of the little stickers that we've made. So if you wanted to check him out, go ahead and see that.
Yeah, he was a great model, I must say. So especially the listeners, you guys can finally see what Mr. Bones looked like.
Exactly.
Have you ever had a full out-of-body experience?
I have not. No. I have never had an out-of-body experience.
What religion did you grow up in?
I grew up in Catholicism, Roman Catholicism. I definitely do not follow that anymore. Wasn't quite for me, I would say. I spent a lot of time in religious education when I was young. Like, I went on, like, Sunday school was a thing for me when I was a kid, and it wasn't good. It was not very fun.
So what do you believe in now, if you would say you believe in anything? Or follow?
I believe in, and it's something that I've been kind of tossing back and forth, what I actually believe in. But I believe in myself. I believe that I guess for lack of anything else, I believe in myself. I believe that whatever thing is out there, if there is, it doesn't necessarily, can't influence me. I'm me. I do my own thing as far as anything else is concerned.
Gotcha. So you believe in free will then?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Free will is a big part of my character. I mean, I wouldn't be... Because if I didn't make the decisions that I've made and go through my own processes, that I wouldn't be very far. I wouldn't be the person I am today, or be in a actual functioning state of mind if I didn't make my own choices, if I didn't have at least a semblance of, I'm making this, I'm doing this, this is what I feel is what I need to be doing. And if I didn't follow that, I would be on something I wouldn't necessarily be like I would end up working a 9-to-5 in a desk job for the rest of my life and not doing anything with it. If I feel like that would be the outcome if I didn't make my own and consciously fight the urge to, or the, I guess, directional influence of everything else around me.
Gotcha. So you feel like you're in control of the levers on the railroad tracks, basically. Like, you actually can decide, like, oh, we're not going down that path. We're choosing to go in this direction out of a conscious, functional state of mind.
Yeah, out of a good example could be like, what would a good example be? Something like employment is actually a good opportunity. I could choose to suck it up and work 9 to 5 and get paid maybe more money than at the job that I do now, but I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be fulfilled, and I'd hate myself. It would be too routine for my individualism. So I choose to work at a dispensary where I have more flexible hours. I go in at 2 rather than at 9, and I work until later at night because I make that decision because I don't like to get up early in the morning. So if I am able to kind of meld the clay a little bit into what fits my needs, and that's something I'm learning more about with just being and growing, I guess, because as I'm 23, I'm a young adult, and therefore I am not an experienced adult. So going through stuff like this is kind of, it's helping me figure out what my niche are and how I need to live my life in order to be successful.
And you meditate a lot, so
I do.
You definitely seem to have like a solid grasp of like self-reflection when it comes to
Yes,
that, because you spent that time.
Yes, and I take I study a lot of different things, and I take influence from those things in the form of metaphors that I give myself. So an example would be, and I have so many that I use, but on the actual spot trying to think of some to explain, I just can't do it.
Well, it's definitely like an interpersonal experience, so it is definitely hard to like express that into the world when there's like these phenomena that are so intertwined into your day-to-day that when you're like, oh, well, this one moment I had with my teacup this morning wouldn't make any sense to explain to someone else when you're... So it is, I guess I kind of asked a bad question.
Well, no, it's not a bad question. It's just a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
And it would be a lot easier to explain if I had like just had an experience like that. But something that I do, I mean, I get like halfway into a thought and then I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. But it's like, if you learn, it's like how an example of that, like, I guess, idea would be biomimicry. Like, have you heard of biomimicry?
It's ringing a bell, but I'm curious how this is going to apply.
It's how designers and engineers take influence from nature and incorporate them into their own designs. Mm-hmm. So it's like if I'm studying railroad tracks, for instance, and there's something that's like, oh, they, like, this one beam isn't, and I don't know if I'm correct in saying it, this is more or less just a hypothetical example, but if this beam on the railroad track for the bridge they're building, it's not strong enough by itself, but when we attach it to this thing via this way, it's stronger. And I'm like, oh, so like metaphor that into this and that, and I can help myself work with like, so like put the beam in as myself, and then I support myself with friends, or, you know, kind of like just to dumb it down to like a basic
literally your
level.
Support system.
Kind of, yeah. It's like that's like an example of it is kind of like my support system.
Because that can go on so many different levels when you're just like, your schedule can be part of your support system, like you're going on, or like your friends, or the fact that you supplement your neurodivergency with marijuana. That's part of your support.
Yes, exactly, and that's a choice that I made. That's something that I, as an individual, have made the choice to do. And I feel like that's a part of why I don't necessarily get that euphoric feeling from marijuana anymore. Because I have made a conscious decision in my brain to affect the receptors to not work the same way.
So you literally have trained yourself to use it as a medicine than any other. While some people use it, and by a constant nature of using it at parties and at festivals and whatever, they've training their brain that that's a party drug rather than this is a medicine, this is medicinal, it has benefits.
Yes.
Like people view CBD still as a medicine, but marijuana, or married iguanas as my
married
brother.
Iguanas, yes.
Married iguanas. It has a lot of power to it. And people don't seem to respect it all the time. And I really admire that you respect it for what it offers.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that indeed. But yeah, like in terms of like like kind of like that free will aspect of what I've been, I guess, more or less trying to explain is like there's a thing in science that they've been working on recently about time and how particles move through space in time. And they found out that time by itself cannot be reversed in any sense. Because if they were to... Because, of course, you can play back a recording, but that is technically not reversing time. It's just re-instigating a reversal of exact points with exact numbers artificially. Whereas if they ran a simulation of particles that were they left at a certain trajectory and they entered at a certain trajectory, they would just like reverse that and enter them with the same speed and trajectory that they exited in that previous one. And you would think that the same thing would happen in reverse if they were to interact with each other, but that's not true. You get a completely different outcome. Chaos and disorder are naturally built into society and into how the universe works.
Yeah, entropy is a requirement of just our existence.
It is. Yes, it is, because it's one of the it's not a fundamental force, because it does not because there are like the four fundamental forces: the weak, the strong, gravitational, and electromagnetic, I believe, are like the four main forces. And entropy is just kind of an aspect. It's like an attribute of the universe rather than a
It's not like a causal thing. It's
exactly.
It's like a side effect of the existence of these other forces.
Yes, and it's really hard to visualize that.
It is kind of hard to visualize that. While we're talking about visualization, do you mind if I jump ship just a little bit here?
Yeah, no, let's change. Yeah, no, we have all the time in the world.
Yeah. All right. So I want to do something kind of fun with you.
Okay.
Because I haven't never done this on one of the other episodes before. I want to ask you these questions, and I want to think of the first word that comes to mind. In the previous episode with Sean, we went through a couple of them, but I want to go through let's do a rapid.
Cool. All right, bet. All right. Hit me with them.
All right. First word that comes to mind when you hear the word extinction.
Dinosaurs.
Nice. Growth.
Also dinosaurs.
Why?
Because they're like the greatest extinction event that we know about is the dinosaurs. But they were also the ones to spend the most time on this planet before they died. We have some things that are still alive from back then, from even farther back then, but those don't technically count. Those are like the immortals in my mind. But
cockroaches and alligators.
In like tardigrades and stuff that have been around from
eons.
Exactly, they were the first forms of life ever, and then from them have evolved into all these other things. But they still exist.
Yeah, they're like amino acids, which aren't technically alive, but
they make things alive. So.
It's like on the threshold of like a virus. Like, is it or isn't it? Like, I don't know.
It is. Yeah, amino acids are cool because I feel like that's definitely they're essential to actually life happening. But the reason why I say dinosaurs as part of growth as well is because A, they're big, and B, because mammals have spent such a insignificant portion, mammals as a whole, all of us, not even just humans, which is even smaller, but mammals have spent such a small amount of time on Earth in its history, and reptilian dinosaurs, for lack of a better term, have been on for a lot longer, so they had more time to evolve. Most of evolution happened with them. So that's why I say growth.
I like that. All right, genocide.
Ooh, I had like 5 jump through. Jeez. The one I'm gonna pick is the Rape of Nanking.
Okay, do you want to give us a little history lesson there?
Oh boy. That's a deep one.
It is.
Jeez. God, I have to go back to high school for that. Give me a second, Carrie. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Carrie was our high school history teacher.
Yeah.
She was amazing.
We went to high school together.
Yeah.
Yes. But basically, the Rape of Nanking is what it sounds. It was the utter destruction and pillage and rapage of an entire city called Nanking in China. I believe it was done by the Japanese.
Really? I did not know that.
It was part of the Japanese-Chinese War, as far as I can tell, because there was a lot of Eastern Asian conquesting and shit going down when the Knights were happening over here in the West. A lot of conquering went down over there in that period of time. That was like, not necessarily, I mean, the Mongols were still around, but it was different. But yeah, it was a very intense battle in which one army, because I don't exactly know who did what to who. I know it was in China is where this took place, but it was like hell on earth. People were raped and killed, not just females, but children and the other men. Everybody, there was no one spared. It was yeah, it was bad. It was real bad. Definitely not something that you would learn about in elementary school history. Not something you would learn in most of today's high schools, honestly.
Yeah, Carrie was super unique in a lot
awesome.
of her teachings.
Yeah, super great.
My favorite thing she ever taught us, I think she sat down every year at the beginning of the class. She's like, if there's anything you guys are going to take from this class, do not attempt a land invasion of Russia.
Never attempt a land invasion of Russia. A sea invasion can work. The Japanese did that. But, yeah, don't attempt a land invasion of Russia because it won't work.
Yep. I thought it was the funniest and most interesting thing for her to start every year with. Line every year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the next one. What is the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word reintroduction?
Ooh, reintroduction. I think about stem cells. That's the first thing that comes to mind right now because of what we're attempting to do as a human society right now. We're attempting to reintroduce stem cells into the body to grow limbs back or grow organs back or even create artificial bodies and stuff like that. Like, crazy shit's going down on that front. So reintroduction, that's like a reintroduction of our basic genome. It's crazy stuff.
I like that one. Reproduce.
Vagina.
I like it. All right, produce.
Lettuce. That's the first thing that comes to my brain, even though I used to work for a farmer's market. But lettuce. Produce.
What if I change the emphasis on that a little
Produce.
bit? Produce.
Capitalism.
Yep. I feel that personally. Yeah. Homicide.
Ted Bundy.
Interesting. I just learned about someone called Nilsen.
Nilsen.
Nilsen. It's like a documentary on Netflix right now. What is that called? I think it's like Conversations with a Killer or something like that.
Oh yes, about the guy who writes letters to people in prison. About is it that one?
No, he was like almost as bad as Jack the Ripper in like England not really all that long ago, if I'm remembering correctly. It was wild. I've been watching a lot of that.
Live crime.
What is live crime? Like real stories of like crime investigation.
Live cream. This is an explicit podcast.
As stated by Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and any other source you find your podcasts.
Exactly.
Yes. So anyways, there's a lot of documentaries right now on Netflix right now about homicides, and it's some of these people are nuts, dude. But
yeah, that dark true crime stuff is going crazy right now.
I've never gotten into it really because I've always like researched.
I thought you would always be into that shit.
Well, because I've always like researched and studied like serial killers way back before it was like a thing.
Yeah, no,
And...
I mean that's why I didn't blink an eye at it when it became a thing, is because I was always around you when we were younger. And I was like,
hilarious.
People do this. Compass is weird. We did weird things.
Yeah, like I spent like 3 years like studying cults and like between high school and college.
I got credit for it.
I accidentally really broke the internet.
Oh, damn.
Really getting way too deep into some cult research I was doing. I ended up finding a non-disclosure agreement between the United States and one particular undisclosed cult.
Oh. Was it the Catholic Church?
It was not. I wish it was, because that'd be funny. But no, it was actually like a convicted cult who ended up killing this guy out of... they were doing some sort of conditioning, is what they were calling it. And it was not physical. So it wasn't like a physically strenuous test. There was no physical contact. There was no physical harm. It was all mental. And he straight up died.
Yeah, the brain's a powerful thing.
But it didn't involve a heart attack, stroke, seizure, anything along those lines.
Yep.
And when they tried to investigate what had happened, the U.S. basically went, yeah, so we're not going to talk about this. And I'm pretty sure, the U.S. government's probably using that behind closed doors.
Well, maybe
that's
we'll
nice.
see. I don't know.
I mean, who else would put Trump up for president unless it's some sort of mental conditioning for like the aliens or something like that? I'm just kidding. That was super conspiracy
That was some
nonsense.
conspiracy shit.
Yeah. Anyways, carry on. First word that comes to mind when you hear the word suicide.
Ooh. I don't know if that's one we want to say.
Well, go for it.
Myself.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of how suicide works.
Yeah, it is. I was suicidal when I was younger. That's something that is a little bit more personal and not something I necessarily want to be out on the internet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, no, definitely not a good thing to be in that. Don't do that. Not a good... People love you. Don't do it. Call the hotline. We'll put that up on the screen.
Yeah, we will definitely do that.
I'm the one in charge of that, so that will definitely go up on the screen.
Yes. All right. Production.
Us, the Dead Roots.
Oh, that's pure.
Yes.
I like that.
Us. We are a production company, and it's our first venture out into something like this. It's been something that I wanted to do for a very long time. Because I went to school for film and stuff like that, and something that I have a lot of passion about. So, us. We do production.
We do production. Let's get rooted, guys.
Shameless plugs all over the place. That's what
yes.
happens when the two owners are the interviewers.
Yep, for sure. I'm sure we were probably more entertained by this than probably any of our viewers are.
Well,
but
hopefully our energy gets across.
All about the vibes, man.
It is all about the vibes.
Yeah. All right. Natural.
Colorado, or Alaska, or Hawaii. They're good places. Lots of naturalness.
Destruction.
Ooh. The human race.
Elaborate, if you would.
We're destroying our planet. We're destroying ourselves. It's just all destruction. It's all done. It's all bad. We destroy everything we touch as a species.
Yeah.
The only thing that's managed to get around unscathed is the moon, and that's only because we've been there a few times.
Yeah. Did you hear about like the idea that was coming out fairly recently? Actually, I think I read it on I think it was actually a petition that was being signed on NASA, actually, if I'm remembering correctly. I'll have to hunt that down and plug it in the description below. But they were discussing using satellite advertisement. So basically what they would be doing is like, imagine Coca-Cola launching a satellite.
Yes,
with
which
basically
they've already done.
A giant hologram on it.
Oh, God.
That plasters
Don't tell me
there's
there's billboards in space now. We're not going to be able to... Okay, so...
Yes.
Something that needs to be known about and not a lot of people talk about. Maybe a lot of people know, they just don't talk about it anymore, but... Yo, there gets to a point where there's enough stuff in space that if something fucking happens, everything goes wrong. A cascading effect that if one tiny piece of metal hits the wrong satellite at the wrong trajectory, that satellite explodes. Those things go off at their own trajectory and hit other things, and they hit other things, and they hit other things, and they hit everything, and eventually we have a cloud of debris around the planet that A, blocks out the sun, and B, prevents travel.
That's not something I've ever really thought about, but more than anything, I would be fucking pissed to go out to a registered dark zone to take my photography, and I get a freaking Coca-Cola banner flying across the entire Milky Way.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, that'd be such a bitch.
That's like my first thought. So obviously I signed the petition.
You sent it to me so I can sign it too.
Yeah, so I'll plug that in there. Hopefully I can hunt it down again in it, because it was kind of like a discussion. There's nothing that's been actually made in production yet, as far as I'm aware.
Thank God.
But there was a lot of like people in NASA that's like, yeah, we can't be having private companies cluttering everything up.
Which is already a problem. They're already cluttering up everything with all of the other satellites that they're putting up into space.
Oh, completely. And some of them are definitely helpful and useful, but when we have every single like national satellite for like, oh, well, we need to monitor the water and we need to monitor the air, and like, what is the United Nations used for if every country has their own 10 satellites for the same things we need to observe? Like, what the fuck are we doing if we could be sharing the same information?
Yes, that's something that I kind of wanted to go into a little bit. And maybe because I feel like this opinion needs to be put out in the world. Borders are fucking stupid. Okay?
Yay! Insert clapping sound here.
Borders are stupid. Borders are stupid, and that's the end of it.
Okay, just a little note in here. For anyone who wants to like more information on that, look up the history of why Oklahoma is shaped so weird. Just do that on your own accord.
Do that, yes. That's a really good example, actually, because it's stupid.
That's because of racism, actually. So if you guys are interested in that one, it's really interesting read. But they're ridiculous.
It's a stupid reason. It's a stupid reason. And the only reason why they exist is because somebody drew a line on a piece of paper.
Yep.
100,000 years ago, somebody drew a line on a piece of paper and said, this is my side and this is your side. And that's
a lot of
why borders started.
And it was based on a lot of capitalism. Like, this part of the mine you can have, and this part of the mine you can have. It's like, there's a lot of things and resources, distribution, marcations, farming.
It goes even farther than that. Back into ancient Greece, when someone was like, this is my line in the sand, and that's your side, and this is my side. I don't want you over here. Like, which I totally get, which is part of humankind. Like, we totally want to have our own privacy in our own areas. But the fact that there are people that don't respect that, and there are people that don't respect individualism, that this shit exists. Like, that there's, if we didn't have borders, we'd be a planet. We'd be the human race if we didn't have borders.
Yeah.
And if
it gets into some like interesting conversations though when we're talking about removing borders too, though, because we already see how slowly everything moves when we have the state autonomy and everything like that, which is good to a certain degree. But then we're looking at like,
it needs to be a type of strictness applied, because if there aren't any frameworks, if there isn't this is how the ships move, but in the canal for most effectiveness, and there isn't a boss and someone like there to like, and there isn't like a hierarchy of someone of
with experience, hopefully.
Well, with experience and with a hierarchy of responsibility, because that helps. Like, hey, please get this done, because then my guy is gonna yell at me, because then that relates to interpersonality between the said supervisor and bottom employee. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're kind of the same. Well, your dude's gonna you kind of yell at me, and your dude kind of yells at you, so there's a little bit of a thing there, which isn't ideal. Obviously, there should be something else, but even with the systems we have, we should be able to do that.
Well, I like the metaphor that you just used for that, because when we're looking at the way that our world is going right now with the capitalism and all of these productions and industries, we are stepping much further away from having land borders. We are having governed borders by corporations and companies, which is super, super interesting, because we're looking at like, okay, well, Amazon can get away with this and this and this and this because they're not operating solely in the US.
Yep, because of tax havens.
Yep.
What business do you feel negatively impacts our survival the most, and why? Comment your answer on our Instagram at the Dead Roots.
Then we see like Nestle even operating in all these different ways, even just in the US alone, because, oh, this state has water laws that we can't fuck with.
Exactly.
And then
Or,
this
like,
state doesn't. So let's buy all their land, supply all their companies with everything that they need, take over the entire place. Nestle now owns massive communities. This is no longer the state border. This is no longer a country border. We're talking about, what does this company get to do in this country? Is it moral? Is it not? And we have to have something overarching between Congress, Senate, or whatever, and United Nations throughout every country. What is it? The Supreme Minister, whatever. What is that?
the Prime Minister?
Prime Minister. Like those like different roles and everything like that need to be communicating a lot better when we're looking at this large scale production issue,
Especially
distribution issue, trash issue, waste issue, management issue. Like we've crossed the boundaries here. We can manage all we want in the US, we can manage all we want in Colorado, but if China's producing all our shit and still trashing all our water, that's not reliant on borders.
No,
so when we're looking at like
that's
the
another good
employment
example.
issues, where we need to be drawing better lines between who is the employee, who is a manager, who is managing HR, environmental. We need to be drawing the borders there, and that a CEO cannot be talking about production management if we're talking about ruining the planet. If we have a production management who is specializing in the environment, that's their job. That border needs to be strict right there. The CEO can't say no because we need to be drawing borders in that sense.
That I totally agree with. I do feel like that, like that's like, and that's the beauty about having a theoretical border, for the lack of a better term, because we don't have a term for that yet. But having that kind of intangible, not really social border, for lack of, or business border, whatever term we end up coming up with, that thing that you're talking about. The beauty of having something like that is that it can act as a wall, and it can also act as a door. It can act as however we need, because something that I've experienced, especially in I used to work at a graphics production facility, and I feel like that definitely helps me a lot with producing things now, especially with us, because it gave me a lot of insight into how that stuff works. There's a lot of disconnect between the client and the actual people in the shop making the work, which should be rectified, in my opinion, for all businesses, because if everyone is informed on every step of the process, this is how this works, this is how this works, this is how this works, that's how it works, like, everything goes smoother because everyone understands the issues that are involved in the making of that process. Like, for instance, if me as the production assistant to the production guy there, if I'm sitting there putting the acrylic lettering onto a faux license plate that's to go up on a car for a trade show, I'm sitting there doing that. I have this piece of paper in front of me that's like kind of showing me what the client and the dude in the office sat and talked on the phone about X amount of days ago. If the dude on the phone was also, that was talking to the client, had also, like, for some whatever, I don't know, and this is the logistics of this get a little bit fuzzy, and that's why it's hard. But if that person in the chair knows exactly what it's like to sit there and put the acrylic lettering in, and what the little tiny nuanced difficulties are of that task, they can communicate that to the client while they're coming up with whatever ideas, so that they can cut those little nuanced difficulties in the ass before they even show up.
I see what you're saying, because like, especially like in construction,
it's just communication and information.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that we need as a human race, that we need to get better at, is communication.
And it's like, it's true with like any employer, like you're saying. Like, I personally have a really, really hard time, like, 'cause I'm dyslexic, that if someone tells me to do something, And I don't understand why it needs to be done that particular way, even though I think that there's a faster way to do it. I'm not going to just go behind their back and be like, I'm not going to do it that way. I'll talk to them and be like, hey,
tell me why so that I can understand.
Or I go in with my idea, like, would this be better? And often they hadn't thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or other times they're like, I see why you would think that, but here is why we don't. And so people also need to get better at asking the right questions.
Yes.
And when we're asking the right questions, then we can write the right petitions.
Yes.
We can write the right governances.
Yes.
These little steps that'll actually set us on the path for success. Because right now we are in a clusterfuck of a bunch of people who think that they know what's going on, when in reality, we are pushing boundaries so fucking hard, we are literally killing ourselves. I love this conversation, but I hate to break it to you. We are running out of time.
We are indeed.
We got pretty far through this, but I think this was great. So thank you so much for coming onto this side of the lens.
Thank you so much.
And for those of you who have stayed tuned on our podcast or our video, we hope to see you next time. For anyone new or tuning in either on the podcast or the video again, definitely check out our Instagram at The Dead Roots. We also have a Facebook page and our new website that's been up for a little while, but definitely go check that out for merch and updates and everything like that. Not only on just mortality diversity, but everything else we do as well, including events and public activism, and something we will be announcing soon enough we're calling Titty Park. I hope that's intriguing enough for you. Definitely.
We have another thing
I
announce
forgot
as well.
The website is called thedeadroots.org. I didn't even say that much.
Yes. We do also have another thing to announce. If you'd like to hear more with the two of us, with Sequoia and myself, we are going to be releasing our own podcast, the Dead Roots Podcast. It should be coming out soon. Our release date is TBD, but that is something that we do have in the works. We have more content coming out. Shouldn't be too much longer.
If you haven't already, visit our website at thedeadroots.org. And to stay up to date or just to have a laugh, check out our Instagram at The Dead Roots.